What's up, guys? I'm Matt Reisinger.
And I'm Steve, Basic Architect.
We are back at the Reisinger Build Project. This is a series that we've been doing, filming this house start to finish. Steve's our architect over here, and I thought we'd take a minute on this video to talk about making room for mechanicals. You know, Steve, how many times have you visited a job site where you're like, man, how are they stuffing those ducts in those, those places?
It's absolutely incredible. When I think back when I started as an architect, we're putting like 3 or 4 times the amount of stuff.
That's a good point.
In a house.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
We got a lot going on. So in this house, I thought Steve did a fabulous job of really thinking ahead of time about where all our mechanicals are gonna go, like our water heater, our HVAC system, our fresh air, dehume. We got a lot of stuff in this house. So we're gonna actually review how we did it, where we did it, and I bet you're gonna get some great advice for your next build. Today's build show, making room for mechanicals. Let's get going. All right, Steve, we're in the foyer of the house. The camera's basically at the front door looking in. If we cut left here, we're walking into the laundry room space. And I thought we'd start here because the placement on the water heater on this plan is genius. Talk me through this, Steve.
So, you know, when you're placing a water heater, a couple things that you really want to pay attention to is all of the runs, especially the distant runs, right? And so we have some above, we have some laterally here where we have bathrooms and powder room to our left here, and then we have a couple bedrooms upstairs. And, you know, one of the things that I've come to find out too is there's a lot of places in the country that are becoming more aware of where the water heater is located relative to all of the sinks and toilets and such.
That's right.
And bathtubs, that some of them are actually placing limits. Like you can't have it more than 25 or 30 feet away from the source.
Fascinating. I didn't know that.
Because there's, you know, water's a hot commodity.
And by putting that water heater on the other side of the house, in the garage, we're just talking about long runs. And then we've got to do all kinds of other systems to get that hot water faster. You know, a recirc loop that's running constantly is a big waste of energy. Yeah. This one is going to have a recirc loop, a quick recirc loop. But again, because it's so centrally located, I absolutely love it. Another thing that's interesting about this closet, Steve, the way you designed it, heat pump water heater. Yep. We got our LG heat pump water heater that's going to be making hot water from the air. You know, it kind of works like your refrigerator in reverse. And so one thing that you did, Steve, is you made this closet have a connection to the hall closet. Let's see if we can see it. It's a little tough to understand this, but like when we walk in here, this is our foyer closet. Yep. You know, put your coat right here. This will be an access panel, and you can see my electrician's about to put a plug up there. Yep. All of my Sonos amps are gonna be up there. When those are running, they produce a little bit of heat. Yep. I've got like 6 or I think I actually have 8 Sonos amps in this house. We got a lot of speakers. And then also a bunch of my low voltage is going to be up there, like my router that's constantly making a little bit of heat. That heat pump, then water heater, can take that heat and put it into the water. So that's a perfect spot to do it. Now, I do want to mention, I've put heat pump water heaters in kind of main spaces before. You need to be a little cautious about dumping that heat into or I should say the output cold air rather, into a spot that people might be bothered. Right. So having this in the laundry room and mixing with the rest, I think that's going to work really well.
Yeah, having it mudroom entry, it's no different than, say, somebody opening the door in the wintertime or something. You get a little quick draft of air. It's like, you know, a lot of people here, they're not coming to this place for ultimate comfort. That's this location in the house. So mixing it in here, and, you know, you make a really good point about the mechanical closet. A lot of people, you know, and architects, when you think about it, you think about it in plan. Mm-hmm. And plan doesn't really relate to the fact that, you know, we have 9 feet of space in there and the water heater's 5 feet tall.
That's right.
So half of that closet is available to do something else. Hang a dehumidifier, put in, you know, all of that other stuff. So really packaging that room to get the most out of it.
I love it. One other thing I want to mention that I think's worth talking about while we're in this space that has a little bit to do with mechanicals. If you were to come around here and look at this wall, there's a bunch of plumbing on this wall. I've got my thermo drain here. There's just a lot happening. And I thought, you know, I want good access for future. If I drywall this, it's going to be hard to pull that off, like if this thermo drain. needs replaced or has a problem in 30 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to do shiplap on this wall, and we're going to screw it in so that it'll be removable in the future. Stay tuned for that. We'll show you how we do that in the future. But basically, this entire wall will have a covering that's removable. I need to start thinking about that more and more, even for ceilings. I've seen on some of the jobs that you've done with our friend Jake Bruton, he spec'd an Armstrong ceiling that was removable in, I think, a mechanical room area. I'm curious how that turns out. Stay tuned. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Yeah, I'm still looking for the right client. I have this one concept of like putting a 3-foot corridor down the middle of a house where all the mechanicals are in. So at one end, you open the door and you look down a hallway and everything is accessible in there.
Oh man, that'd be
and
nice.
It just goes off to the side. So haven't quite found that project yet, but accessibility is definitely something you should be thinking about
For sure.
the minute you're screwing something in is how am I going to unscrew this?
That's right. So as we walk now through this main space in the kitchen, I want y'all to look up and see the ceiling. Another thing that Steve and I talked about real early in this design was we needed to make sure we had good mechanical space. And in particular, this kitchen ceiling is a good example of that. I've got a flex pipe running through here. That's actually my dehumidifier output, which is dumping down into that same closet where the heat pump water heater is. And remember, the output on a dehumidifier is hot dehumidified air, so that's a good spot to put it. The hard pipe that's in the ceiling is the exhaust fan for the kitchen, the exhaust kitchen exhaust. And then I've got a bunch of rhea ducts running up in here. This was Steve and I saying, all right, how are we going to get a floor system that's going to work? Had we built this with, let's say, 2x12s for our floor system, we would have never made it. I-joist might have been able to work, but there's a lot in that ceiling space. So by having the BFS truss designer design these trusses with enough open web space, we easily figured out, hey, this is going to be no problem. And in fact, we had a pre-construction meeting, actually pre-mechanical meeting, trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to route everything? We took Steve's plan, we met with the mechanical guys, the plumber, and figured out where they're going to route most of their stuff so that the engineer, the designer basically for the trusses at BFS, could make sure we had the open space.
Yeah, one thing that's important to point out about trusses is, like you said, we could have went to something smaller. I believe these are 18-inch trusses.
That's right.
And the minute you commit to trusses, you're X amount of dollars. And to go, say, from a 14 to an 18-inch truss is really pennies on the dollar.
That's right.
And you get so much more space up there. And, one of the things I wanted to point out was we have this large girder truss right here.
Yeah, we do.
And you can see all of this stuff goes in. Well, we needed to make that a girder truss rather than, say, an 18-inch LVL because we needed this access to traverse from the 2-story space to the 1-story space. So, as an architect, you really have to just sit back. You don't have to know mechanical engineering. I don't have to know the exact size of that duct, whether it's 6 or 8 inches, but I do need to understand that there's something going from here to there, and we need to prepare for that.
For sure, for sure. I do want to make mention for our northern builders to understand that in the south where I am, we don't have the typical basements to work with like you guys do in the north. So we're limited on space for trying to figure out where to put mechanicals. And as a result, what you're seeing here is pretty typical on Texas homes, some type of first floor upflow unit. So my carrier upflow system will be here. You can see I've got return air in the bottom. I've got a platform that hasn't been installed yet. I've got a trunk line here going up. And I want to make mention, Steve, I mean, you gave us nice, good room. I think you specified a 3.0 door into this space. Those are just those small details that really make a difference, not just for the guy installing, but think about the guy servicing that house. When your HVAC tech comes in once a year to fix things, or 15 years from now, if this system needs replaced, 20 years from now, how much easier it's going to be if I have a 3.0 door and a big room to be able to make that. Then I've seen some mechanical closets with 2.0 doors. I mean, like, how do you ever get it out? Terrible.
Yeah, there's no planning there. And the thing is that by the time you figure out how horrible a situation is, everybody else is gone and the homeowner's kind of left holding the bag.
That's right.
Right. And I hate the idea. And I have conversations with our homeowners that say things like, they're like, hey, can we make that like not that obtrusive, or can we not put that grill there? It's like, we can, but there's a song and dance that comes along with changing that. There's a cost that comes along with that. And there is a huge aggravation fee in the end.
Yes.
Trust me. There's, so you have to look for places. You're coming down the stairs here, this aligns with the width of the stairs. So it creates a nice little hallway that actually provides privacy to the owner's suite.
That's right, which is right around the corner here. This door is heading into the owner's suite right here.
Yeah. So
and also you're not giving noise to the owner's suite, right?
And you're not giving noise. This isn't backing up to it, but it provides that privacy. So I don't come walking out of my bedroom and I'm in the kitchen or I'm in the living room.
Yeah.
I have a little hallway here to kind of adjust my thinking before I enter the public space. So there's a lot of little tips and tricks, of placing this stuff in the house and, putting it in the middle of the house rather than over, like you said, in the garage or in the corner somewhere.
Beautiful. Now, we've been talking about things that Steve's done right. Let me make a full confession on something that I did wrong. I'll meet you over in the living room. All right, Steve. So on the positive side, your design was really smart by giving us lots of space in really 3 attics on this house to put mechanicals. You used some storage trusses that the BFS people designed. You can see we decked them right here with some Advantech decking. And so now up in that storage space up there, I've got great mechanicals. I've got my ERVs mounted up there, my Life Breath ERV. I've got a Santa Fe dehumidifier. And then I also have a little bit of low voltage space. My fiber is coming up into that space. My Voltec system will be mounted up there. There could be some storage, but it's mainly mechanical access. And the reason why we can do that, Steve, is because that's part of my air conditioned envelope of the house. Right. On this home, I have 4 inches of rooftop polyiso. And then inside the envelope, we're going to be using some Owens Corning closed cell spray foam at the roof line. Right. So that's an unvented attic space. How common is seeing these unvented attic spaces in places besides the South?
Well, they're becoming more and more common because people are looking to it's an easy solution to put mechanicals inside the conditioned space, to take the insulation and simply moving it towards the slope, right? So it does make sense in a lot of ways to be able to do that. And, if you don't do that, it's basically a bunch of airspace that you're not using. Yeah,
that's right. Now, 2x6 bottom cords, and it's interesting to see they double up a 2x4 on top to allow us to have a little bit of storage load. But here's my confession. When I looked through the Facro catalog and trying to figure out which attic ladder I was going to use, I've used these, what do they call these? Not scissor ladders.
I call them accordions.
Accordion ladders, there you go. I was simply looking at access to this space. I wasn't thinking necessarily about anything more than getting a person up in the attic, let's say maybe to change a filter. And you can see already the problem, can't you? Doink! In fact, I think Mark nailed himself the other day on one of your videos.
Yeah.
So, it's like you got to do a shimmy and a little bit of gymnastics, like you got to stretch before you get up here. Which, okay, fine, you can get somebody up there. But what I realized immediately after I put it in, almost slipped coming down. What I realized immediately after putting that in was there is no way I'm getting my Life Breath out of there.
Not unless you're taking it apart.
My dehumidifier. There's no way any of that stuff's going to come back out. Yeah. So I think I'll modify this ladder, or I'll get a bigger size. Not the manufacturer's fault, totally my fault on the builder side.
I never really thought about it here, so I'll take the blame on that. But a lot of what we've done also is we'll put an exterior hatch in the gable.
Yeah, I've seen you do that.
Right,
and we'll use that on the multi-gen project.
On the multi-gen project, I've actually done a number of videos on that. But then the beauty of something like that here is if something breaks, it's literally going right outside. It's not coming down through the house. You don't have to worry about dripping water or rusty water on the floor.
Smart.
Any of that stuff. So I mean, that's another thought in the future.
That's a good idea. Now, one thing I want to mention is in Texas, it's real common to see in attics, not only ductwork in vented attics where it's way too hot. That's a really bad idea. But almost even worse, Steve, you won't believe this, but I see a lot of water heaters up in unvented attics. Can you imagine if that water heater had a problem? Number one, I've got 50 gallons or 100 gallons of hot water above my head that could fail. But number two, how the heck are you going to pull that giant tank down any staircase, let alone a tight staircase, and put a new one back up there without damaging it, without hurting the worker, all that kind of stuff?
And so people understand clearly, I mean, you were nice enough to future homeowners to actually give them a ladder.
Yeah.
A lot of houses, you'd have exactly the scenario you talk about, but you'd have that little scuttle hole with a piece of drywall.
That's right.
So there's no ladder, there's no staircase, nothing. It's just, hey, it's all yours.
Pretty bad. Let's actually go upstairs. We're going to show you another attic in this house, the main second story attic. We got a couple things up there. Meet you upstairs. All right, Steve, as we climb upstairs, I think it's worth looking up at this skylight above us. The skylight's covered over, obviously, because we don't have it in place yet, but you can see the hole. And my HVAC guy has 2 ducts. Actually, that one's missing his boot still. That's coming. But we've got a return and a dehumidifier supply into that space, which I thought was a really good idea.
That's a great location to put it. I mean, it's the hottest air in the house, and it's most likely the one with the most moisture in it too.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and it's not like you're looking up at it, but I don't think it's that obtrusive to see a grill up in there.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal either. That light washing down is going to be beautiful into that space. I'm excited about that. That happens to be a Facro skylight too, which is kind of cool. Now, storage trusses up here. These guys are even bigger than those ones we saw downstairs. You can see I've got 2 full sheets wide, so I've got 8 foot of full storage width. And I've got the full width. What is the width up here? Maybe
length.
32 feet?
It's probably something on that order.
32 feet. So I've got 8 by 32 of storage space. And then check out this ladder too. I thought the location of the access was really smart. And if we pull this down, we can take a look. This one I did well. I did not make a mistake on this one. Put the bigger Facro in. This one has a slightly different ladder. This one's a folder. And
interesting thing about this ladder to point out is this one actually has double weather stripping.
Oh yeah.
Right? So it has, it's catching weather stripping on this line here, but it's also catching it on the lower one. Which,
that's pretty nice. And I think this is an insulated door, although I don't need that in this particular occasion. But if you pop your head up here and take a look, you'll be surprised how nicely the HVAC guy, actually let's jump upstairs with the camera so we can take a look at that. Okay, so check this out. Man, this is nice, isn't it? I don't have my lights turned on yet, so I brought my little Bosch light up here.
It's about time you got up here.
Steve, scared me, dude. Trying to give me a heart attack. Look how nicely the guys at my HVAC company, I use Air Right here in Austin, did, Steve. Isn't this nice?
They did a beautiful job.
They took all this rigid duct, put it up to the top of this truss line here, gave us lots of room to get in. I imagine everyone's Christmas decorations and fake trees going in this foreground space.
And luggage, all that stuff that needs a home when you're not using it.
Exactly. Where you are, Steve, right to the left of your head is the main trunk line.
Yep.
The carrier system is not here yet. We got a brand new model coming out in September. So it'll be installed in about the next month or so. And then where you can't see, but on the far end is my Life Breath system. And then on the right, that big white box is my Santa Fe dehumidifier. I think that's a 98H model. Which I mentioned is also outputting into the skylight area. I mean, this attic's genius. I love it. Gorgeous space.
I mean, every house in the South, if you're doing a slab on grade, it should have an attic that looks like this.
Yeah, for sure. I want to mention too that Steve and I are in a temporarily air-conditioned house. It's probably going to be 85 degrees out today. And in this attic, it's pretty comfortable. I mean, we're probably 76 right now, 78, something like that. And the reason being is I've got this rooftop foam and I've got my zip bar and I've got a tight envelope. The Pella windows, I've been very impressed. They've been very, very tight. So with that temporary unit, I've been able to maintain pretty nice conditions in here, Steve.
Yeah.
For all the workmen and women on the job site. It's worked out real well. Let's meet you guys in the garage. We'll wrap up the video down there. See you downstairs. All right, Steve. I love this big garage you designed for us, man. This is fantastic. A couple things I want to mention on the garage, Steve. We're kind of tempering this garage or conditioning it a little bit. So this will get fully insulated. And then above the camera's head right here is our one-way ceiling cassette that'll be tied to a mini split. That's basically a recessed mini split. They look a little nicer, but it's the same thing as a mini split.
And they're made to fit inside that truss spacing. So
exactly. So Carrier 18,000 BTU unit, so a ton and a half for this quite large garage. But what I think is interesting on mechanicals for this space is, we've got this attic storage up here. And again, the attic will be conditioned as well because the insulation will be at the roof line. Yeah. So one thing we did here that I thought was kind of cool, and again, we have tons of space for it, is we took a Fantech fan at the ridge, at the kind of highest level of that attic space, and figured, okay, that's our hottest air in the house. How do we move that air out of the attic and back into the garage? Because there's obviously no outlets for the AC up in the attic space. So this little, we got a little skylight going on right here. Where the skylight comes out, there's a grill right here, and that's where that little fan is gonna go. We're gonna put that on a thermostat.
Yeah.
So when it's hotter up there, 85 degrees, let's say, that'll blow air from the hot part of the attic down into this space. And then this grill right above our heads here is just a transfer grill. All it's doing is moving air. And then the attic space, again, we put a big Facro ladder in, but I did want to point out, because we've got no basement space, not a lot of extra mechanical space in the house, this worked out great because we were able to put our Fantech makeup air system up there. So that big hard pipe coming through the wall lands in a makeup air. And when you're building really tight houses, you need a fan to blow in as well as a fan to exhaust. And we did that, basically that same Fantech system at my house. Works fabulous. We tuned it with a manometer at the very end of the job so we could figure it out. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say when my exhaust fan's running at 400 CFM, we actually are blowing in like 420 CFM or something like that, something like those numbers. So we've got one fan in, one fan out. Works fantastic. Any comments on this garage?
No, I mean, I love the idea that it's tempered. I mean, we use the zip R sheathing on the outside. You don't have to go crazy with the insulation. You could go down and just do a batt insulation. Let it be, less expensive. But, the way this is laid out where you can have a couple cars parking and have a beautiful workshop space here. That works out very, very well. Placement of the ladder, you have to think about that. Obviously, this one's in between the two cars.
Yeah, that was the idea.
So making sure that, everything is well thought out.
Yeah, also interesting to notice, I think the bottom cord of these trusses, are those 2x8s or am I missing?
Those are 6s.
Those are 6s. Okay, so 2x6s again, spanning front to back. And again, a pretty nice storage space because this is, I forget how many feet wide. We're about 20 feet wide?
No, it was probably 26 feet wide.
26 feet wide?
It's probably close to about 30, 32 feet long on the long point and maybe about 26 on the short.
So we got a really nice garage space.
But having it tempered too means you could store stuff up there in a cardboard box.
That's right.
Right? You wouldn't probably want to do that if this was, 3 houses over.
Well, my house that was in this neighborhood before was an unconditioned vented attic. And I remember when I moved here, I had some ski boots and I put them in the attic to store them. And the season after that I took them out to ski on, I took them to the slopes, and immediately when I did this, they all cracked and broke.
Yeah, it was a slow death to the ski boots, putting them up there.
The plastic just absolutely died, and I didn't realize, my attic was 150 degrees in July. I was baking my plastic.
Yeah.
So having this attic up here at 80 degrees, let's say, on a summer day, and the hottest it gets is that, and maybe the coldest it's going to get in this garage is 50, 55. That's pretty nice. This could act as a Costco pantry, as a storage space. We got all those things by just keeping this garage tempered with just a small amount of heating or cooling. Any last thoughts as we think about this?
No, I mean, this is just a great, ending here in the mechanicals. Super well done. I mean, hats off to Jeff there and his guys, because the pre-planning session that we had with him, he's on top of things.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of guys, oh, I don't know what we're going to put there. He was like, hey, it's probably somewhere ducked around this size. And he was real easy to talk to. And he's kind of the guy that says, you know, let's do some planning here, because planning is probably going to save me in the end. And so let's talk this through. So hats off to him for not only coming to the table at the beginning, but the execution of his stuff. I mean, the duct masking, all that stuff.
Nice.
They did a beautiful job.
That's why I've worked with those guys for 20 years. They do really
don't
good
lose
work.
these guys.
And big thanks to you, Steve, for that master architect, master planner. When we designed this house, I wasn't thinking necessarily about where the water heater placement was. Steve automatically put it in that spot. And it's those kinds of things that when you work with a fabulous architect that has a great understanding of building science, that just kind of happen automatically. So I want to say a big thanks to you, Steve. And if you don't know Steve Basic, go check out his videos. He's shooting videos on a weekly basis for us over at thebuildshow.com, and literally on a daily basis is publishing to Instagram at Steven Basic Architect. We'll put a link for both of those in the description below. And lastly, if you're new to our channel, come to our show this fall, Build Show Live. Steve and I are doing a bunch of building science training, a bunch of mechanical training, a bunch of business of building training. There's a lot going on. And if you buy the VIP pass, you get to see Steve and I present building science. And if you buy the VIP pass, you get to see Steve and I present Build Science 301 live, plus get a personal tour of this house with Steve and I, and a personal tour of my house in the afternoon of the pre-show. So we'd love to have you come. Link in the description for a discount code so you guys can join us in the show this November. Anything else, Steve?
No, this is perfect timing. They can watch the video, develop their questions, bring your questions out to the VIP show.
That's right. Come see us in person. With that being said, guys, follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.